What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtics Daily with me, Mike Zakarian, and congratulations. You officially made it to NBA free agency as it tips off today, and we've already had a ton go down over the weekend as Shams was just tweeting away on a Sunday. We've got a few Celtics updates, some big NBA landscape updates, and then obviously we will get into your comments at the end of the video. But again, if this is your first time here, do me a favor before we get cooking, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell so you know the next time we drop that sweet Celtics content. So, listen, I have some potentially bad news, and that is Luke Kornet and Al Horford's run with the Boston Celtics may be coming to a close. I felt pretty confidently after the news of Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, with Sam Hauser still in the balance, with Anthony Simons potentially on the move. It seemed like if Al wanted to come back and play, he could with the Celtics, and that Luke Kornet would be remaining with his goofy self in the Boston team. However, there is reports that the Los Angeles Clippers are surfing around. Surfing, is that the right word to use there? Are floating around. The Sharks are in the water. It seems like the Clippers are trying to get Luke Kornet to be their backup big behind their big man, Ivica Zubac. Clippers made a couple of moves yesterday. One, having Nicholas Batum opt out of his deal. He's most likely going to sign a more team-friendly deal to remain with the Clippers. James Harden did a similar thing and has already agreed to terms for a 2-year deal. And again, a more team-friendly one that's allowing the Clippers to give him a little bit more space to maybe bring on Luke Kornet. Now, the Celtics do have a little bit of wiggle room, but if a team goes out and offers, say, like a 3-year deal, maybe that like really wants to pay Luke Kornet, the Celtics just are not going to have the flexibility to do so. And yeah, I don't blame Luke to go get a bag either. Luke has not really had the opportunity to just like, what was not Darkwing Duck, not Daffy Duck, Scrooge McDuck, and just kind of like splash around in the coins. He hasn't had the opportunity to do that right now. So if a team does come knocking with a 3-year deal, I could absolutely see him taking that. I do think Kornet loves playing in Boston. I think he loves this Celtics team. And I think if the offers are comparable, whether it's in money or in length, duration, I could see him absolutely choosing to stay in Boston, maybe if he shaves a million or two off, or it ends up being a 2-year deal versus a 3-year deal. However, would not blame him if he decides he wants to get that bag. Al Horford, on the other hand, he came out and said he is still continuing to weigh his options. So even though free agency officially starts today, I don't know if we're going to have this news for another couple of weeks as he continue, because he's got the option of retirement, which is not what a lot of these free agents are thinking about. But Al is definitely thinking about that. Again, more reporting that the Knicks are floating around. The Clippers also could go after them. Like, Al clearly is someone, even though he is aging up, if he is going to be like a backup big on a competitive team, it makes a ton of sense. He still can obviously shoot the 3-ball, can defend at times, right? Was still like so imperative to the Celtics' short-lived postseason run. But I do think, if you asked me last week after the Drew and the KP deals went down, I felt very good that both Al and Luke, at least one of them, would be on the Boston Celtics. Now, I don't really know. Even though the Celtics are creating this cap flexibility is doing a lot of work here in that word, but they're creating the ability to bring back these guys. I'm now a little nervous that they might not come back because another team, all they have to do is splash around and throw some dollars out there. We've had free agency tip off a little bit, and one of the things that we've noticed is that teams are not spending the crazy money, right? If you think about what the Raptors did like last season, right? They trade for Brandon Ingram, extend him for a ton of money, right? It's like 125, I think, 125 million. They signed Emmanuel quickly for like 5 years, 150, all that stuff, right? The guys that we're seeing sign deals now are much, much cheaper, whether it's like Naz Reid and Julius Randle, who are both going back to Minnesota. Like, Julius Randle got 100 over 3 years, which like isn't nothing to sneeze at. Like, that's still a great deal for Randle. You're getting $100 million. Nobody's going to complain about that. But I think we're used to seeing much, much bigger splashes. And so it makes me wonder if teams aren't spending 125, 150 million, will it make it easier for them to maybe overpay a little bit on some of these role players like a Luke Kornet? We also, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a name getting thrown around, who I do think that would be just such a good Boston Celtic, but I don't think we're going to have the ability to do that as teams like the Atlanta Hawks and the Detroit Pistons are going around. Speaking of the Pistons, by the way, a quick aside. I don't know how many people have seen this, but apparently Malik Beasley of the Detroit Pistons, although currently a free agent right now, is under investigation for potentially betting on prop bets in games that he participated in. That's not a great look. They don't know if it's during his time with the Bucks or during his time with the Pistons or every other organization he's been a part of. But what's so crazy about that is Malik Beasley was due for probably like a 3-year, $42 million contract. He was in negotiations with the Pistons as this news dropped. Shams had actually broken that story maybe a few hours before that the Pistons and Beasley were looking at an extension, and then bang, here hit with this, and now that's absolutely going to nuke his value. I mean, I can't imagine a team giving him that kind of deal now until this investigation is taken care of. But that kind of throws everything up in the air because now the Pistons are going to be in the market for someone. We saw Duncan Robinson of the Miami Heat opt out. And so he's now a three-point shooter that people are going to be looking at. Duncan Robinson was somebody that the Celtics were linked to potentially making a move with the Miami Heat, and now I really don't know. So free agency is going to get just as crazy, even if the dollars aren't as big. And speaking of big dollars, LeBron James yesterday, just with some of the this kicked off all of the chaos yesterday. So LeBron opts into his player option, right? He had a player option of like $52 million. He opts in, which I don't think anybody was surprised about, right? Everybody assumed LeBron is going to come back and play with Luka, right? I mean, I get that Luka's young and LeBron's old, but they were still a very successful regular season team before getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs by the Timberwolves. But LeBron, then his camp immediately releases a statement that makes it sound like he wants a trade. Basically saying, we understand this team is looking to rebuild for the future around Luka Doncic. LeBron is well aware of how many years left in his career he has, and he's looking to win now. So even at age 40, LeBron is out here trying to apply pressure to be like, hey, go make some moves or I'm out. As someone who is also 40, I can't do that. I can't. What am I gonna say? If you don't put a comment on this video, I'm gonna find another platform to do a video on. It doesn't work. Doesn't have the same bang to its buck. So, anyways, LeBron goes out there trying to apply some pressure, and then everybody was like, okay, well, what are the teams that could go get LeBron? We know the Celtics probably can't do that. I don't know how they could eat another $50 million contract unless they were trading somebody like Jaylen Brown, which you shouldn't do that for LeBron unless you're strictly trying to just wipe out the salary cap, right? Because they're basically making the same amount of money for this year, but then LeBron's contract falls off. So I don't know. I don't really think that's going to be the case. And so that was like the big talking point for the majority of the day yesterday as free agency was getting ready. And then another crazy thing happens. So the Portland Trail Blazers, who just acquired Drew Holiday, bought out a max contract of DeAndre Aton. Remember DeAndre Aton? The Valley-oop when he throws the dunk down against the Clippers to help get the Phoenix Suns to the NBA Finals? Former number 1 pick. Gets a max deal from Phoenix, then gets traded. Also, let's go over this trade quickly. I know this isn't strictly Celtic stuff, but I do think this is going to impact them a little bit. This is a 3-team trade, all right? Let's break this down. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't think anybody won this trade. In a 3-team trade involving the Phoenix Suns, the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Milwaukee Bucks, Ayton was traded to the Blazers. This trade was a part of a large deal that sent Dame to the Bucks. The Suns received Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson in the trade. Portland also got Drew Holiday, who then went to Boston, and draft picks. So then they also get like Time Lord, who didn't play any time for them. Just an insane trade where it feels like everybody lost in this deal. But now, one of the crazier things about DeAndre Ayton, and the reason I bring this up is because I do think there is the smallest possibility that DeAndre Ayton could get to the Boston Celtics if the Celtics were interested in him. So, according to, I believe it is Bobby Marks, when you buy somebody out, it doesn't really affect it doesn't really affect the salary cap like it typically would. So even though he's coming off a max deal, you don't have to like sign up for all of that. My understanding on it, here it goes. This is according to Bobby Marks. DeAndre Ayton is free to sign with any team despite earning greater than $14.1 million. The waiver restriction for second apron team only applies during the regular season. He had $35 million left on an expiring contract. So DeAndre Aton could essentially go anywhere. Now, I don't know how you feel about Dominatin', which is a nickname he gave himself, which is always a red flag. But he does make a ton of sense on a lot of different teams. I know the Lakers, speaking of LeBron, saying he needs some extra help and they are desperate for a center. That could be a landing spot. The Pacers are a team that offered him a max contract before the Suns matched it. That they could still be interested, but what a wild like turn of events for the Blazers to just do that. And then there was somebody in the comments and in my DMs that were saying, "Is Portland getting ready to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo?" They bring Drew Holiday over. They have two of Milwaukee's picks from the Drew trade. You know, they've got young pieces that they could offer, and then all of a sudden you've got Giannis, Kamara, Drew Holiday, Denny Avdia, Donovan Clingan, the big guy. I don't know. I don't know what the hell the Blazers are doing. But just wild stuff from LeBron, from Portland, from DeAndre Ayton. And I do think the Ayton thing could impact Boston a little bit. If anything, Ayton going to a team that is desperate for a big might limit the teams that are interested in Luke Cornett or Al Horford, which helps us retain them. So crazy stuff, crazy stuff. Let's back to Boston here. Sorry for the tangent. JD Davison, the G League MVP. They picked up his, I believe it's like $2.75 million. That I might be off on that number, but they picked up his contract. However, it's non-guaranteed, so they could probably bounce off JD if they wanted to at any time. JD had a little bit of a run there when the Celtics were super short-handed towards the end of the season. He played a little bit. Again, G League MVP. I'm assuming he will be at Summer League again with the roster. The Celtics did confirm that Baylor Shireman's going to be at Summer League, that Jordan Walsh is going to be at Summer League. So that's exciting that we're going to see some more run, especially from Baylor Shireman. And then obviously the rookies are going to be there as well. We did get the Summer League schedule for Boston, by the way, just in case you're trying to tune in. So on Friday, July 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern, this is games on NBA TV. They're going to play the Memphis Grizzlies. On Sunday the 13th, same time on ESPN, they're going to be playing the Detroit Pistons. On the Monday, July 14th, they're playing the Heat at 8 p.m. And then Thursday, July 17th, they'll be playing the Lakers. I am going to be at both the Friday and Sunday game. We're going to be out at Summer League from July 10th to the 14th. So if you are out in Vegas or making a trip for Summer League, make sure to hit me up because we're going to be doing some meetups and just, taking in some Summer League action. It's a really good time. So go check that out. So that's good news for JD Davison. Take another flyer on him. It's non-guaranteed, so it's nothing too scary. Let's wrap up with some of your comments. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you for tuning into the content and dropping the comments. Even there was a lot of this guy sucks yesterday. And you know what? Keep bringing it. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love and the hate because you can't get the love if you don't get the hate. I think that's in the Bible somewhere. But I appreciate you watching as long as you have been. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor. Get into the subscriptions. Subscribe to the channel. It helps us out. Makes us feel good. All right, here we go. We got 3 comments for you today. One, from our guy David Scott 407. What about getting Jalen Smith from the Bulls? So if you remember in yesterday's video, we talked about Nikola Vucevic, who everybody decided to hate on that potential trade that was thrown out there. But Jalen Smith is the backup big for the Bulls this past season. He played 64 games, basically averaged 8 points and 5 boards. I don't know. Jalen Smith, I don't know if there's a ton of interest around him. He was, I believe, a lottery pick, spent some time with the Indiana Pacers. The Phoenix Suns took him, and I remember everybody being confused, like, why did you reach for him there? He went from Phoenix over to Indiana and then to Chicago. So he's been 5 years in the league. I mean, he's a cheap flyer. And if you're just trying to, see what you got, I don't hate it. I've always been, I've rooted for that dude, maybe from like the fantasy basketball side of things. But I mean, he's had so many chances at this point and still hasn't had the ability to break through that I don't have a lot of high hopes. Shout out to Panic at the Disco. Don't have a lot of high hopes that he is going to be somebody that is going to impact winning, I think is the most polite way to say it. Let's get to a second comment here from our guy, Josh Hirth 8933. He said, we need to be as bad as possible next year while while keeping, let me start again. We need to be as bad as possible next year while keeping Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Al, and Pritchard. Move Simons and Luke, put on a team that can't score or defend the rim, and reload next summer when JT is back. Now, I like this idea in theory because if you can guarantee that everybody's going to be back the next year and still super happy and not upset about losing, it's just a quick tank. You get a top 5, top 6 draft pick in a class that's supposed to be even more impressive than the 2025 NBA draft class that we just had. I don't hate it. I don't think we're going to do that because there's two reasons. This roster is too talented. You just listed off like 2 all-stars basically in Jaylen Brown and Derek White next season. Peyton Pritchard is going to have an incredible season. I know some people think he's just a bench guy. I promise you, he's going to average over 20 points a game, probably shoot like 45% from 3 or something crazy like that. So I think it's just too talented. I also think the Eastern Conference is just dog doo, and I think it's going to be so hard. Like, you look at some of these teams, like the Pelicans, even though they're trying to be good right now, they're still going to be bad. Wizards are going to be bad. The Grizzlies will be better than that. We got the Hornets are still going to be bad, even though they had a good draft class. Toronto is such a weird team. Who are some other Western Conference teams that I'm blanking on here? I mean, the Trailblazers might be a little bit better. The Phoenix Suns are going to be crap. So I think it's going to be hard to guarantee, or the Utah Jazz, a top 5 or top 6 team just with the Eastern Conference and the talent on there. But in theory, it sounds great. I love the idea of just getting, one of the Boozer Bros. Get a Boozer Bro on the team. If you're not familiar with the Boozer Twins, they're out there cooking. And I think that could be a lot of fun. But yeah, it's just crazy to think that this time last year, we're like, the beginning of a dynasty starts now. And now we're like, well, dude, what if we just tank real quick? But that's where we're at, baby. This is the first day of NBA free agency, so I imagine we've got some more chaos lined up for you all week as we head into 4th of July weekend. My name is Mike Zakarian. Appreciate you tuning in for the Celtics Daily. Hit the subscribe on the way out, and we will catch you tomorrow.